Welcome to the X Podcast. We're episode 60 something, 70 something, but we're so glad that you're with us today. Why don't you do us a favor and like and subscribe if you've not already. Share this with someone if it ends up being helpful to you, but we got a fun conversation today. I'm here with my friend Tim.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. I feel like I'm dealing with a little cold or something like that. So
You have COVID for the fourth time?
Yeah, COVID for the fourth time. Yeah, that's it. No, it's not COVID. But I do sound a little nasally.
You do.
I do.
Good.
I sound a little.
But you've been doing a lot of speaking lately.
I've been doing a lot.
You brought the house down last night.
I did?
At our leadership night.
I did, or you did? I think
you did.
Someone chopping through flaming boards. That was you.
Did that really happen?
That really happened. I got video footage to prove it. It was pretty epic. Have you seen video footage of it?
I have.
It was pretty awesome.
You know, it was weird seeing it outside of myself. I was like, does that mean that looks weird?
It's pretty cool.
You know,
yeah,
it was fun.
So
it was
several leaders got to see it, but yeah. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we can't really post it. It's but Russ here, he broke some boards, 3 boards on fire with his hands.
You know,
on top of other things. And almost took people out with nunchucks and other things.
Yesterday was really a case study in how ideas and vision develops and grows.
Yes.
Because what started as one board breaking demonstration turned into a whole sequence that somehow during the day yesterday turned into weapons being added.
Yeah.
And a whole lot more.
And using weapons to break boards while people are holding them.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have some blood spilled last night, but
that's okay.
It's all worth it.
Cause.
It's all worth it for a good cause.
That's
But
right.
We continue our discussion. We've had some spicy but really good conversations lately. All things going on in the world, all things going on internationally, all things going on in the month of February, celebration, all kind of stuff. It's been really fun. But we continue the discussion because there's a lot going on around Olympics.
Yeah.
And
which you've been watching, right?
Oh, you know, I have not. I have not. I'm living vicariously through you.
You have not watched. You didn't watch any of the Summer Olympics.
I
you didn't watch the Winter Olympics.
What does it say about
You're
me?
a huge Olympics fan. I get it.
You know, but I do like. I love the Olympics. I think we did one last year. We're talking about the Olympic spirit. I love the Olympic spirit.
Concept of the Olympics.
The concept of the Olympics.
You don't watch it.
And if I was ever at home and had cable and had a bunch of people around that wanted to watch, I would for sure watch it. It's not in my rhythm of life right now.
Okay.
To sit at home and watch the Olympics.
Unfortunately, the U.S. hockey team got beat by Slovakia, so they did not move.
The Mighty Ducks?
Wrong one.
Okay.
Wrong one.
Okay.
But the women, I think, are playing for the gold. As of the time of recording this, I think the women's team is competing for gold in hockey. Yeah.
Okay, so fill us in. What are some of the highlights? Who's winning what?
So Shaun White did not. He didn't do anything. So he's just snowboarder that's won for years and years and years. But he had a good time competing. Same thing with Michaela Schifrin, I think is her name, the downhill girl that she hasn't. But I think the U.S. is. Last time I looked, I think we were 3rd or possibly 4th in the total medal count. Which we never dominate kind of in Winter Olympics like we do. Not always, but do well in the Summer Olympics. So that's fascinating. The ROC, you've heard of that country, right? The ROC, The Rock.
Yeah.
You've heard of The Rock?
You mean AOC?
No, not AOC. Different person. The Rock, ROC. They're a number 2.
That announced the Super Bowl. He did. He said, finally, The Rock has come back.
Yeah, okay, the ROC, not the ROCK.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyways, you can tell. I was watching the Super Bowl with some friends, and I was like, they were showing footage of The Rock doing the introduction.
Yeah.
You know, he's like down this with the mic, and I'm like, I guarantee 30 minutes before he went on to do that, he was pumping iron. His arms had a
100%.
massive pump. I mean,
100%.
You know, he was just back there doing like 300 curls.
Listen, that was the thing I was most excited about. We're derailing
really?
already. But I mean, we're coming
Come
out.
on.
Listen, I had chills when I saw The Rock posting on socials, him walking out, practicing, doing rehearsing. Which, by the way, so hot take on halftime show. Did you like it or not?
Yeah, I like the halftime show.
They say that everybody under
a certain age
55 says the greatest of all time. Over 55, this is horrible.
Yeah.
What's happened to our country?
People that were definitely over a certain age definitely were like, this is awful. I thought it was great. Some of it was just definitely nostalgia for me. Some music and stuff from people back in my era.
Isn't it funny though that Death Row Records would be in the same camp as nostalgia? That you could feel sentimental over Eminem.
I wasn't that. I thought Eminem was he was definitely not in the spotlight. He was just, but
it is funny.
Yeah, it was funny because 50 Cent starts off upside down.
Wait, what'd you say?
50 Cent.
I just love how you said it.
That's his name, 50 Cent. That's how you say it. You need to know how to say it. It's not 50 cents. 50 Cent. But he started off hanging upside down.
He did.
And that was pretty cool.
And people have been really mean towards him.
In what way?
Have you seen that? People have been making memes because obviously he doesn't look the same as he did 20 years ago.
He's like bulked up a bit.
Nobody wants. How would other people feel?
You know how old you know what's funny is we were looking up the ages of them. And I think I'll get this wrong. I don't know which one. Dr. Dre, I think, was 56. I think it was, or Snoop Dogg.
You say 56?
56.
56?
They were all in their 50s mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Most of them were. Not all
Except
of them.
for Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. He wasn't. He's 34 or 7.
What's your favorite Kendrick Lamar song?
Oh, my. I don't know. You asked me too quickly.
You said that's like your gym jams.
That's not my gym jams. But I did. I enjoyed the music. I felt like a lot of us, we were there, definitely felt a little nostalgic going back and some of the music. And it was kind of simple, but it was just, my favorite part is Dr. Dre. Just like there was something simple about he would just stand there and rap, but there was something about his voice and the way he would carry it. And then I loved it when he got on the piano started playing.
I thought
I was like, oh, I like that. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
And the fact that they got to the SoFi Stadium in L.A.,
that was awful.
The whole thing was just iconic.
It was. Except for the Bengals losing. That was not fun. Anyways.
Sorry, but the ROC rock.
ROC, I think they were in second place in medals, which is interesting because right now, one thing I was telling you, I think right now, just a massive international controversy over, yet again, another doping story coming from a Russian athlete. And that would be the 15-year-old figure skater, Kamila Valieva, I don't know how to say her name right.
Valieva,
no, you're just adding stuff. Okay. Which, again, what's interesting is the professionals in the sport, whether it's Johnny Weir or was it Tara Lipinski or whatever, they were basically saying watching her for the last few competitions, were basically saying she looks like she could go down as possibly the greatest figure skater of history. And these are professionals who compete at the highest level. They're saying this about her. And then all of a sudden it comes out during the Olympics after ROC, not Russia. And the reason why they're not competing under Russia is because they were banned by the World Doping Agency, WADA, from competing under the Russian name. And they're the part of the ban. It was supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be a complete ban. I mean, they're actually banned twice. I think it was 2015. There's stuff that happened in 2014, 15 that caused a ban, but it kind of slid. And then 2019 they got busted again. And the most recent one that I understand was that it was state-sponsored doping, which means Russia as a whole, state-sponsored. Okay, even though they have a Russia anti-doping agency that I think maybe turned a blind eye, but a state-sponsored doping of their athletes to help them perform at the highest level, on the highest stage. So in 2019, they got issued a 4-year ban that was supposed to be they could not compete at all in competition. Then they appealed, and I believe it got lessened to where they could compete, the athletes that didn't test positive. But they could not compete under the name Russia. So it's ROC, which stands for Russian Olympic Committee, I think. And it doesn't have like their logo. It's just kind of the rings and I believe if they win gold, that they do not play the Russian anthem. So it's some kind of classical music that they play. And so that was for the last 3 Olympics: the Winter Olympics in 2018, the Summer Olympics that happened in 21 in Tokyo, and then these. These are the last one. And then it comes out the story, which is fascinating because this 15-year-old tested positive for basically a banned substance. It's really a heart medication, but it's proven to give some edge to your endurance and other things for athletes, so it's on the list. I guess the test result came out right around Christmas time, but it was not made public. And I believe it then became public after ROC won the team skate event at the beginning of the Olympics. And so you're talking about months later, it's coming out in the middle of the competition. And so then the IOC got involved, and they had to issue a ruling. And they issued, this was kind of the most shocking thing. The one guy issues a ruling saying that she could compete in the Olympics for the individual, so the short and the long program, that because he said that we do not see a culture of doping from Russia. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This has been years going on. And he was trying to say in the last couple of years, we haven't had Russian athletes. And so that's what he was trying to say.
We do not see a culture of spying when it comes to Russia. We do not see a culture of
hacking
invading and getting involved in political elections.
But it was just odd to me when there's such a history in the last 5 years everybody knows.
Yeah.
And so now she's competing. She's in first place. She's expected to win. She probably will win.
Right.
At the time we're recording this, she has not competed in the long program.
Right.
She will. I mean, she's like one of the few skaters who can do quad jumps like crazy in it. She's good. I mean, she's good.
Right.
And they just said that if she wins, that they're not having the medal ceremony until they make sure everything's good. Like, and so it is the talk. Like right now, it is just like a huge scandal. I think it's the thing that people are going to remember around this Olympics when it gets said and done, which is a shame for all the other athletes. Worked so hard, and this is going to be the headline that people are going to remember from the Beijing Olympics. I can almost guarantee you. It's going to be all around this 15-year-old girl. And, you know, you have to think. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, it would not surprise me. Again, I don't want to say, I'm not saying anything. Like, I wouldn't imagine that, because I know a little bit of history of what they've done with athletes. We've known people that were like Russian ballerinas that you would be taken, not to say taken, you probably offered, but you go from home to staying in sponsored homes where you grow up for many years, full-time ballet, full-time this. You're being, you're being controlled by the state in that regard. And I wouldn't be surprised if this 15-year-old, I imagine the 15-year-old girl's probably not the one thinking about any of this. I mean, but someone's probably going to take these supplements, these are what's going to help you be stronger, whatever.
Yeah.
But then what was crazy to me, though, just last thing, and then if you have some thoughts. What was crazy to me in this whole thing was the lawyers for the ROC came out and said that it was an accident, and the reason why it was in her system was because that medication her grandfather is taking, and she accidentally took her grandfather's medication. They got it mixed up.
Yeah. So,
and I'm just going, wait. Have you ever heard of somebody accidentally taking their grandparents' medication?
No. And in the same way, so
this is so unbelievable.
Where my mind goes immediately, there's so many fascinating things about it, but look, countries aren't villains. So I want to say that because we're very, like, one of the things that we talk about all the time is opening our mind to a nuanced approach, and whatever people group it is, whatever group of people that think differently than you, learn to value. And so understand I'm saying that against the backdrop of that. But I couldn't help but be reminded of a few episodes back when I was being a little tough on Putin. Because, again, I know the politics there are beyond the grasp of my current comprehension. And I know there's history there. There's all kind of things at play. And I also say that, again, with the understanding that America, we're not always the good guy.
No.
Like, every nation has. But again, I just, in my mind, I can't shake off the caricature of the villain that Putin tends to live up to.
Yeah.
And that you just continue to see this thing, whether it's in assassination attempts or assassination successes that they pull off and the excuses they give, or the evading the conversation about Ukraine for so many, which that's still on the doorstep.
As I said, Russia is on the forefront of the news right now for a lot of reasons.
And I just can't help but think, again, I know it's way more, it's not this simplistic. I know it's way more complex. There's a whole lot more factors. But I couldn't help but think about, like, with Putin having been in leadership for 17 years, there's that whole thing in Exodus where God takes the spirit of Moses and puts it on the people. I just can't help but think the spirit of Putin over 17 years has been put on the spirit of that country.
Well, whether they want it or not.
Right, whether they want it or not, and to me, it's almost just fascinating. It's a fascinating case study in leadership and just different cultures and countries. Yeah. And again, that's not vilifying all of Russia. No country is villains. There's some governments that in certain times act more villainous than others, and there are definitely specific leaders and human beings that choose to act more as a victim or a villain than a hero. But anyways, I just think the whole there's just so much going on at the same moment with Russia. And it's just interesting to watch.
It is pretty fascinating right now as we speak. You know, there's conflicting reports, too, coming out about Russia.
Any moment now.
Well, that's what President Biden was saying. Any moment now. We don't. And then there's other reports coming out saying, no, they're drawing down their troops from the border. But then there's other going, wait, no, that's not what we see. And the U.S. has pulled out everybody from their embassy from Ukraine because they still believe that an attack is imminent. And maybe by the time this airs that they could be. I don't know, but this is what it made me think about, because it's not just, and obviously this one situation in figure skating, and who knows, like, there's also some weird laws apparently that protect this 15-year-old girl because she's underage, which don't make sense to me. If you can compete at the highest level, you should be held to the same standard, no matter, But it made me think about, like, this idea of, like, the reason why we have a World Anti-Doping Agency is because this is an ongoing issue in almost every sport.
Right.
And, like, even in America, baseball has always been at the top of that talk.
Yep.
You're a baseball fan, I think, right? I mean, I just remember, like, the race for the most home runs with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. You may not remember that, but I remember watching that. 'Cause
I remember.
I'm not a huge baseball fan, but that was headline.
What years were that?
96 or something, or somewhere in there.
I remember that.
But I was somewhere on there, and I don't know. You baseball fans.
They would show every morning Sports Center.
Yeah.
They show the highlights, and it was like the back and forth.
Back and forth, and then Mark McGwire ends up breaking the record with 70.
Yeah.
Then you have Barry Bonds that breaks it several, a couple years later with 73. And then in the 2000s, it all really starts coming out. Mark McGwire, like, blew up like huge. I mean, that dude was just ripped, and hitting home runs was like nothing to him, you know. And then he came out in 2010 and actually admitted that he had been using and performance enhancing drugs for a decade. You have really the face of baseball, A-Rod, who got suspended and actually came back and said that he was taking some illegal substances from 2001 to 2003. But in that time frame, won an MVP. Yep. You have national MVP winners, American MVP winners. You've got people that are in the history books now. Barry Bonds. I mean, I think I can't remember, again.
I love Barry Bonds.
Yeah. Well, I think Barry Bonds still to this day claims that he didn't take anything, even though he got huge and all that. I thought he did, but, like,
he definitely did.
But everybody's like, there's no way.
Right.
And so, I don't know. It got me thinking, like, do people feel like at times that it's worth it to cheat, potentially even if you get caught, because of the benefits of what you can get out of life for cheating? Like, let me ask this question. Like, think about this. This is almost a would you rather.
Yep.
Would you rather win at the highest level, have the moment where you are crowned and you get the euphoria of being the champion and everybody writing all this stuff, to only have later come out that you were taking the banned substance? And they might, it kind of reminds me of Reggie Bush. So Reggie Bush, when he played at USC, Reggie Bush won the Heisman, if I recall. Okay, so he won the Heisman Trophy. That's the highest award you can get in college football. Right? Best player of the sport, Came out later that he had, I think, taken money or some other things. So here's what they did. So they stripped him of his trophy. I mean, I don't think they physically took it. You should give that back. It's like your name is kind of taken off of whatever, but you might still have the trophy in your house. Everybody knew you were the award winner. It's like, you've seen that before with like the Astros, and it comes out that they're cheating on stuff. And so it's like, we strip you of it. It's like, yeah, but they had the celebration. They might have got paid money, and because they meet certain things, so the players, like it's almost like and today in baseball, kind of the thought is people are still doping because they risk it because some of them is helped them get really lucrative contracts.
Right.
That your first offense, I think it's like a 50-game, or maybe second offense, 50-game suspension. And so a lot of them are like,
Yep.
or I think it's happened in hockey as well, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'll take the suspension, but I got the massive contract around it. And so it's almost like what we're seeing happen with the Olympics, where you have somebody that tested positive, and maybe to no fault of her own. Let me just say that, okay, that she is being allowed to compete, very likely will win the gold medal.
Right.
And the message that it almost seems to send is if you cheat, you can win.
Yep. Yep. Means justify the end. And
So would you rather have that moment that everybody dreams about having, to win that moment, to maybe later have them come strip it, or to be clean the whole time and never reach it?
yeah,
That's an interesting.
that's the question. Isn't
That
it?
is the question, I think.
Well, it is the question, and but I also think attached to that question is a lot of assumptions. I think the human deception is always, well, it won't happen to me.
Getting caught.
I won't get caught.
I won't get caught.
You know,
They try to.
or the human, or the immaturity in us, or perhaps if we're the peer pressure of the environment we're in,
Yeah.
could be so fixated on their own definition of success that you don't think about the end. So even if you think about getting caught, you know, I mean, the deception of whatever kind of environment you're in, if you don't have enough forethought, what is it? Andy Stanley quoted him last time. He says the definition of wisdom is to ask yourself the question, in light of my past history and in light of my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do?
Yeah.
So sometimes I think the problem is people may not even ask that question. They don't ask the question, well, what will happen if I get caught? It's just, what do I want so bad right now?
Well, and you mentioned like the culture, because I think I remember some baseball players that came out and said it's kind of, and because Jose Canseco did a book, I think, called Juiced, and that came out in the early 2000s, where he said that he really believed about 80% of Major League Baseball players were all taking performance-enhancing drugs. But then we've heard other people that have come clean with it, and I think he did in there, that basically said the pressure of the culture was, if you didn't take this, you would not keep up.
Right. Yeah.
You would not be able to perform like
Yeah.
they're taking it, not getting caught.
Right.
And they're winning all, you know what I mean? And they're getting the contracts. And here I am, I'm not taking these things, and I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
And I don't have a guaranteed future in this league. And I don't, you know what I mean? So some of them feel like it's their only chance. Take the risk of doing it. And again, this is such a small subset of culture, but I think in life, you know, that same question is in front of all of us.
Sure.
I think the same question about whether or not we would cut corners, or whether or not we would cheat to get ahead, and whether or not we justify it because of what the end could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to use the whole, like, since we're talking about sports analogy, I mean, part of it is you got to decide what's your scoreboard. And so I think for a lot of people, they've just decided, well, that external markers of success, whether it's the trophy, the validation, whatever, that's my ultimate scoreboard. And so even if I have to lose on the inside to win on the outside, I'm willing.
Yeah.
But I think I just think there's a lot of deception in it. I think first off, I mean, spiritual standpoint, Jesus said, what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul?
Yeah.
So if, you know, to take it deeper, if you win on the outside but you lose on the inside, you lose.
Yeah.
In my mind. What was it? I saw the quote the other day. Is it Billy Graham that said, if you lose your money, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. If you lose your character, you lose everything. And it's that whole thought of it doesn't matter how much you win on the outside, if on the inside who you are, if you lose, then you've lost everything. Yeah. And also, even on a practical level, though, too, like, usually if you lose on the inside long enough, you eventually will lose on the outside. Yeah. It's kind of that whole thought of, like, right now, even spiritual stuff aside, one of the things that I think is really good in our culture, even apart from faith, is over the last few decades, the Tony Robbins of the world and the Zig Ziglars of the world and the John Maxwells of the world, even on a corporate level, have really spread this whole thought that true success is holistic. True success is every arena of your life you're winning, and it's not just a encompassing your accomplishments and what you're achieving, but also who you're becoming. That whole concept. So I think intuitively we know that. And what was it? One of the podcasts we listened to, Erwin McManus talked about when he was in his 20s, right after he gave his life to Jesus. He started working on goals of just how to become a better person. Yeah. Instead of setting these crazy success goals, he started creating goals of how do I become trustworthy? How do I work on my work ethic? How do I become reliable? How do I build my integrity? And he said what he didn't calculate was the secondary goals is all those things actually translated to success in life. And so I think a really good formula to remember is that if you win on the inside long enough, you'll eventually win on the outside. But if you lose on the inside to win on the outside, you'll eventually lose at both. I mean, you'll eventually crash and burn. And
I think the question that I wrestle with is, if you win by cheating, do you really win? So
you don't.
But let's say you win by cheating and don't get caught.
Yeah.
If you win by cheating and don't get caught, do you really win? Now, you might win. Let's talk about what you could win. You could win the accolades. You could win the love of, if you're a sports athlete, you could win contracts. You could win. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could win if you win by cheating and don't get caught. But I think, like you're saying, I think one of the things that you, at the end of the day, you have to deal with is the inside, the real you. You know how you got there.
Yeah.
And so I think, though, you can have external validation, and it's not like you take performance enhancing drugs. It's not like it means that you're instantly going to be a musclehead. And you have to work hard and still do that. And so they do. And so I'm sure a lot of them are probably conflicted. But I also think a lot of the baseball players and things we talked about, I think a lot of them we look at and it's like that thing will always hang over them, even if no one else knows. And so it's the idea of, if you never get caught by somebody else, are you still caught internally? In other words, does your conscience still always in the back of your mind, hey, they just praise you. You're the greatest. You set the record for that. Oh, thank you. But on the inside, you're going, yeah, but I did it because I cut corners. Or, yeah, I did it because of this. And I just think that kind of nagging, gnawing thing on the inside is going to mean even if you win externally, you're not going to really win internally.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, to make it really simple, is there anything really worth your peace? Like, is there any, like, it's funny, like, somebody that would steal $50 worth of something, like, is there any amount of money that's worth your own self-esteem? Your own self-respect? Is there anything that's worth your own actual sense of peace? Is there anything worth the price and the gold of being able to lay your head on a pillow with a good conscience?
Yeah.
Is there anything worth the value of being able to look at yourself in the mirror and actually believe that's the internal? But again, I would even say, and I know it's not the point you're making, but even the external, eventually you'll lose both, because what was it, that one verse in Scripture says your gift will make room for you? And people have added on to that. I'm sure we've all heard it before, but your gift will get you in the room, but it's your character that will keep you in it.
Yeah. And
I heard a leader say one time, I know this is true in my life, he said, I'm really glad that God let me make my worst mistakes in small rooms. You talk about the leadership pyramid. The further you go up on the leadership pyramid, the less room there is.
Less room to fail.
For the bigger mistakes.
Yeah.
And so it's
true.
I don't know.
No, that's really good. I think too. I think it's also about redefining what winning is.
Yeah.
Right.
Which scoreboard?
Yeah, it is, and because I think you in the moment you can win at life, and at least on the external of, hey, your boss promotes you because you present something that maybe isn't accurate, numbers, this and this and that. Look, I've been doing this. I accomplished this when you really didn't. Take credit for it when it's not really yours, and you get promoted. Right. There's different ways in life that we do this. It's not just in sports, and you can win in that arena. But if you think a little bit long term, and you think at the end of the day, like you said, it's like to win with character, or to win at character. The lasting value is what you pass down to the
Yeah.
next generation and the generations after. And so I think about people like Mark McGuire. I think about people like Barry Bonds. I think about people that have been in those situations that have accomplished all that, but then have either come out and retracted or they come out and said, yes, I did these things. Like one day they have to have that conversation with their kids. Why did you do that, Dad? Why did you don't even take this? Why did you? And it's the same thing, I think, in life. Eventually it all catches up with us. The whole thing that your sin will find you out.
Yep.
Eventually it'll all catch up with us. And when it does, the real loss maybe, because you could go, well, it was worth it because I got this much money and I made this much and I go get another job and I do all this.
Yeah.
But I think the real loss might be the thing that the heritage that you're leaving or not leaving. It's the conversations with your kids and your grandkids when they're reading about what you did, or they're seeing it and they're asking, why did you do that? You know what I mean? And you have to explain it. And those are the kind of moments where, like, at the end of the day, I think that's where character wins out.
Yeah.
And at those kind of moments when you look at legacy and you look at your grandkids one day and be able to say, even if you were a professional athlete and you're like, I got bronze, she won.
Yeah.
But she had all this around her, and I'm telling you, I'm fine with coming in third because I did it the right way.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather tell that story
Yeah.
at the end to my kids and grandkids
Yeah.
than I won that. Yeah, I'm a gold medal winner, and then them also discovering that there was all this drama around it, and because of a technicality that you actually got it, but you probably shouldn't have got it. Like, to me, that's not worth the win.
It's
You know what I'm saying? That's not worth the win.
I almost have like the image in my mind to me of like choices are like snowballs that are building a momentum in one area in a direction. And so all the choices I'm making when it comes to who I'm becoming are building and snowballing on top of each other, both on who I'm becoming inside and what's going to become on the outside.
Yeah.
I know I've been so spiritual this episode, but like this morning, I read this passage in Scripture, Romans 6, where it just kept talking about sowing to the flesh builds into destruction, sowing into the Spirit builds into life. And I just think whether you're a person of faith or not, for me, it's just there's got to be that awareness. The patterns I'm building, the choices I'm building are building a snowball effect on the inside and the outside. And one other, I couldn't help but think it was so interesting when you're talking about how, was it Jose Canseco talking about the culture of juicing? Or was it Sammy Sosa?
No, I think Jose.
And he's talking about how like it was almost this thing of if you're not taking these substances, like everybody's doing it, you will not get ahead. You're gonna be left behind. And it reminded me of again this story of Daniel and his friends when they got carried off in Babylon.
Yeah.
And basically, if you're familiar with the Old Testament, they get carried off and they're basically slaves and they're young teenage boys. And they were presented with the opportunity, everybody around them were eating substances that for their faith would defile them. And they had a decision to make. That on the outside, it would look like if we're not going along with what everybody's doing around us, we're going to be left behind. And they had a decision to make. Okay, if we actually stick to our integrity and our character. And they said, give us 10 days and just give us vegetables and water and see what we look like afterwards. So I just think...
And they got into promoting them, and that's
they ended up being promoted.
And that's the hard. That's the challenge, I think, and that's probably what I think from this whole again, Russian figure skater and the doping thing impacts me in no way whatsoever, no way. But when I think about the whole scenario and I think about the bigger picture, I can apply it to my life and saying, you know what, I would rather. I would rather live with consistency and live with character and allow God to open doors for me and bless me from that and be able to maintain that conscience and be able to maintain that legacy that I leave behind than I would to cut corners in life. Whether it's, I'm going to cheat on taxes to get a little bit of extra money. You know what I always constantly, like my wife used to always say this, and she is forever that person that if she goes through a checkout line and they give her by accident too much money, that is that person that which she found out would literally like drive back to the store. Now I'm the kind of person, if I see it in the moment, I'm like, hey, you gave me extra, and I'll give the money back. If I didn't notice, like honestly, and I drove 20 minutes and got home, I'm like, that's your fault. I'm not going driving all the way back. My wife's the type that she was like, no, I can't. Yeah. Like her conscience was like, I can't. So we have levels of it,
Right, yeah.
but levels of character.
Yeah.
But one thing she's always said, and all this, I've always believed is just like, they accidentally gave you an extra $1 or $2, on exchanges. It's like, what's $1 or $2? It's not a big deal, whatever. They did it. It was their mistake, right? We say all these things to ourselves. At the end of the day, you have to say, what is my character worth?
Right.
What is my integrity in that moment where I could have said something? Again, something minor, something small as that, right? Yeah. But what is it worth? Is it worth $2? So sometimes when I do that or I think about it, I go, it's not worth $2. It's not worth $10. Like I value myself more than that.
Yep.
I feel like I'm worth more than that. It's not worth to do that, to have in the back of my mind. I don't know, it's small and you probably forget it eventually, but have back of my mind going, yeah, I probably should have done that.
Yeah.
Like it's not worth it. $1 million. Okay, see that is the question.
Yeah.
How much is your character worth?
Yeah.
That is the question with, like I said, all the baseball players and the ice figure skating, all this stuff we're talking about is that some of them have said it's worth it and they'll sell out for that. But I think at the end we don't really win.
Yeah.
You might in the moment you might feel like you do. In the moment you might get the accolades.
Yep.
But at some point you have to live with yourself.
Yep.
You have to live with the constant memory. I did this, but it'll always overshadow. And that's the thing in baseball. It's always overshadowing. Yep. I mean, even the question about who gets into Hall of Fame and all this stuff, and some people are saying you should put an asterisk next to this. Everybody in this, and you know what's sad is that everybody else who's not the best of the best, who remain clean, they all get fit because they're like, okay, from this year to this year, doping scandals, that was the narrative of baseball in this season.
Yep.
So now everybody else gets lumped into it.
Yep.
Probably same thing with Russian athletes. Some of them are, clean, don't ever do that, and they're like, now I'm under the magnifying glass and scrutiny. Even though I didn't do anything, and I've been, you know what I mean? So
no, that's good.
It's just an interesting thing happening right now in our world, and I think that's the takeaway. Like it's not worth it.
And don't assume that you won't get caught. What was it you said? You don't want that hanging over you. What was that? What was that leader recently? I don't know. In the last few years that wrote a book, they talk about the headline test.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, they said the thing that you're dabbling in or that you're tempted by, write out the headline. What's the headline that could come from this?
And see if you still want to do it.
And see if you still want to go there.
No, that's good.
But, all right, I think what you said is a good thought. Let's win in the right ways.
Yeah.
Let's win on the inside to win in the best ways, and knowing that through that we'll eventually win on the outside as well.
That's good.
So, all right. Hey, thank you as always for tuning in. If this helped you, encourage you, share it with someone. And as always, send us any questions, comments, or topic suggestions at the X podcast at the X.church.
Yeah.
Podcast at the X. Yeah. I thought as soon as I started saying that, podcast at the X.church. We'll see you next week.